Thank you for taking some time to listen to our story regarding our experience with higher education relationships that have helped us to develop a foundation for our Chesapeake Bay Countywide Action Plan in Center County.
I'm Erin Latavic. I'm a CAP coordinator for Cumberland and Center County in Pennsylvania and the program manager overseeing 11 other counties. I work for Herbert Roland & Grubik, an engineering consulting firm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I have about 17 years of experience of engineering, fundraising, and stormwater planning.
Hello, my name is Allyson Ulsh, and I am a recent graduate from Penn State University College of Agriculture. I also did my thesis with the Schreier's Honors College, and I focused on Chesapeake Bay watershed issues. I am currently serving as the Chesapeake Bay technician for the Center County Conservation District, and I recently got my Act 38 Nutrient Management Certified Nutrient Management Planner title. So
today we're going to walk you through some background on the county's Countywide Action Plan, or CAP, how this concept started, and the steps we took to develop project scopes and mentor students through those scopes. We'll also highlight our anticipated next steps and the continued need to remain flexible.
So as it stands, current regulatory required reductions will not be sufficient for Pennsylvania to achieve the EPA mandated load reduction to the Chesapeake Bay. And rather than implementing a uniform tightening of regulations, DEP has allowed the counties within their countywide action plans, or colloquially known as CAPs, to propose locally cost-effective voluntary reductions, focused primarily on nitrogen, but also phosphorus and sediment. This plan allows Center County to take advantage of unique local opportunities to allow for local preferences as to clean water solutions and to provide resources to local stakeholders who are already tackling these issues. The CAP provides us with an opportunity to reach clean water goals the way Center County's stakeholders think is best for our communities, economies, and natural resources. We're in the middle of doing the hard part, which is maintaining the actions that the county and partners have been doing for years while making incremental changes to scale up our successes.
Each county's landscape is different in terms of land use, drainage patterns, farm production, and stakeholders. Center County has on the order of 1,000 farms. Penn State University, who is a major landowner and technical partner. 6 out of the 36 municipalities have MS4 permits, which require stricter stormwater regulations than in non-regulated communities. We also have acid mine drainage impacts to streams and 3 fish hatcheries, which are hot spots for elevated nitrogen levels. Communication between leaders, farmers, and watershed groups tends to be divided by the valleys that compromise the landscape. And further, much of the county's source water protection plans protect their potable water sources regarding environmental emergency spills, but do little to avoid nitrogen in water. Many homes are served by private wells. This is important because elevated levels of nitrogen are a public health issue. So on the map in the upper right-hand corner, which is the same map as the previous slide, Center County is there in the cloud in the center of the state.
So in order to reach the reduction goals that we set forth for Center County, our CAP identified priority initiatives and actions that support local water quality improvement. Each priority initiative is broken down into measurable goals. These goals have evolved over time based on early successes of plan implementation, changes in local priorities, stakeholder feedback, and available funding. Although the CAP focuses heavily on agriculture, each priority initiative hopes to engage stakeholders across sectors to create a holistic approach to meet water quality goals. The first priority initiative focuses on working with municipalities and the county staff to establish consistent solutions for clean water. The second priority initiative is reporting and tracking, in which we are looking to track existing and new BMPs that farmers may have implemented on their own dime, as well as BMPs that were paid on but never incorporated into the appropriate models and databases. The third priority initiative focuses on achieving new pollutant reductions through identifying and supporting farmers who wish to adopt BMPs to enhance their operations, as well as leverage projects listed in MS4 communities' pollutant reduction plans and continue to support their efforts. The fourth priority initiative is research, education, and training, in which we have utilized existing stakeholder relationships to communicate and promote program successes. This fourth category is where we have also invested time to establish new partnerships to scale up our work at the local level. So we've highlighted this here. because this really ties into all of the other all of the other three priority initiatives of the 4 priority initiatives that we have identified out in the CAP.
County CAPs serve as a work plan in terms of partners, timeframes, and measurable goals. So on the screen is an example of Center County's CAP, which is many pages long. You can also reference all county plans on the link on the screen. 8 county plans are uploaded now, and the remainder of the Bay counties were recently submitted to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. So they all should be available to the public in one location soon. In the last 18 months or so, despite the difficulties of COVID, we've developed a coalition of partners who know about our plans, are taking steps themselves with respect to action, and can simply promote our activities. We feel very fortunate to have so many local leaders who are willing to work with us, and we continue to expand our network. So with that background in mind, we're going to outline our experience with these 3 partners, 2 through Penn State University and 1 with Millersville University. The first deliverable from Landscape U arrived without our involvement, and we were so impressed with it and the follow-up with the students that we asked the lead professors if we could continue working with them and their students. On the screen here is an example of their research. There was an interest in understanding the extent of coordination among Penn State colleagues on their Chesapeake Bay work and knowledge base. The graphics demonstrate the connectedness of many actors, but they determine that there are some professionals who do act in an isolated fashion, and it begs the question of what's possible should they be better integrated into the overall cohort. The network broker concept was interesting to us as well because we knew that this type of approach would be needed for us to maximize our network since our core group is relatively small.
As Erin said, the initial assignment that the Landscape U graduate students shared inspired us to develop the partnership further. We met with the professors and discussed the students' skill sets and interests. We drafted some project scopes that we felt served our CAP needs, especially in a virtual working environment. We attended a few of their classes and meetings with the students to answer any questions they may have had in the beginning of the semester. And at the end of the semester, they presented their findings as one of their class finals. This university partnership flowchart is how we engaged with all of the student stakeholder groups at various levels within the partnerships, but these 4 key concepts of relationship development, project scopes, student projects, and then turning the projects into prospects are truly how we took student projects and turned them into deliverable actions for the CAP. So for a little bit more about the Landscape U graduate student cohort, Landscape U is a National Science Foundation Research Traineeship, or NRT, to train next generation scholar practitioners. Trainees work on problems related to the food, energy, water nexus in the Chesapeake Bay and globally, exploring intersections of how these systems are intertwined over space and time. Dr. Erica Smithwick and Dr. Jason Kay at Penn State University are the project leads for Landscape U and have been a seamless extension of our CAP team. If you're interested in more of their work, you can go to the link in this slide. After meeting with the Landscape U professors as a result of the deliverables of the Chesapeake Bay interconnectedness, we created 2 project scopes to present to the student cohort for them to develop their own projects/recommendations. Each project scope had its own background, scope, expected deliverables, and example student projects, which had been discussed in the class prior to the official scope proposal. The professors reviewed the scopes and refined them further based upon the skill set and interest of the students. So the initial projects that we had proposed for CAP deliverables were titled Legacy Sediment Stream Restoration Project Targeting and Riparian Property Communications Plans. The professors then turned them into the first scope, which was titled Designing the Built Environment to Mitigate Sedimentation and Nutrient Pollution, invited students to recommend location, strategies, and feasibility of legacy sediment stream restoration, as well as other infrastructural improvements, such as road restorations, green infrastructure, and others, to meet nutrient and sediment reduction targets. The next was turned into the second scope, which was titled Spatially Targeting Opportunities for BMP Implementation and Planning Appropriate Communication to Increase BMP Adoption, which invited students to identify and map high priority agricultural production areas, prime soils, and proximity to high quality streams, as well as methods of protecting proximate habitats through innovative, ecologically based to low cost best management practices, as well as develop a communications plan that references Center County geography and municipalities, demographics of those areas, and communication strategies that should be used with property owners that will increase the likelihood of adoption of buffers, protecting buffers, and other best management practices. So with all of that being said, the students naturally delved off into two groups, and half of the student cohort decided to work within the first project scope and developed a 53-page report titled Elucidating In-Stream Legacy Impacts from the Built Environment to Inform Pollution Reduction Solutions. The report detailed results from a study conducted by the students surrounding impacts of in-stream legacy infrastructure on sediment pollution in waterways of Center County. The students developed the study in a co-designed process involving communication and integration with stakeholders representing organizations working on water quality and stream restoration throughout Center County. They used a mixed methods approach involving reciprocal integration of findings from quantitative spatial analyses at the county and HUC 12 watershed scales and qualitative data collected from interviews with local stakeholders. The group then took this one level further and created novel GIS layers detailing locations of legacy features, evidence that legacy features impact a not insignificant portion of stream networks in Center County, and a variety of perceptions and knowledge gaps surrounding legacy features among key informants throughout the county. So the students' study framed three key questions which we seek to identify across watersheds related to Center County's CAP goals. These questions are: where in the landscape do those features exist? How much sediment do those features contribute? And how are these features viewed in Center County? To answer those questions, they mined and compiled data from historic maps and records. And then they combined the resources that were existing to create a more holistic reference, and then used all aerial imagery that the county had to verify current existence of these mill dams. All in all, they were able to create several novel GIS layers for the county's use that included 491 potential culverted road crossings and 349 potential mill dams. The second student cohort developed this project, identifying best practices for targeted riparian buffer adoption and outreach with Center County CAP stakeholders. To better execute the CAP, we requested the delivery of a communications toolkit, the development of which is detailed herein. This toolkit serves to inform outreach to local landowners regarding CAP-approved agricultural BMPs and supplement the biophysical Center County toolbox provided by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. The communications toolkit aims to marry biophysical and social science data to provide detailed direction for relationship building, information on rhetorical and design theory, and examples of success from prior outreach. Furthermore, the toolkit enables the use of demographic data to identify landowners who may be amenable to adopting agricultural BMPs, namely riparian buffers, and key implementation zones. The students conducted a review of literature to identify prominent themes in BMP outreach and landowner engagement. The primary themes fit into three categories with a variety of subcategories. The first was perception values, which revolved around landowner concerns regarding aesthetics, identity, and land value. The second was implementation support relating to the availability of financial resources and educational resources. And the third related to stakeholder information, which is the knowledge of landowner characteristics and non-landowner involvement. After the literature review, the students interviewed stakeholders in Center County to refine the communications toolkit. From these interviews, they took away several key messages, including the need for programmatic flexibility and strategic use of resources, the importance of building trust and relationships within the community, investment of time, the importance of community involvement, co-learning, and co-benefits, and the need for a multi-method reflexive approach to stakeholder engagement. To then integrate biophysical and social socio-demographic data, the students use the literature review, stakeholder interviews, and block group census data to create an equation allowing GIS mapping of the county watersheds. They created maps detailing areas that have high willingness for landowner adoption of riparian buffers and high ecological needs for buffers were then produced using factors of tenure, sex, age, population, and other demographic data layers. These landowners were then identified as prime candidates for outreach using the toolkit's communication recommendations. This toolkit supports the 3 actions in our county's CAP priority initiatives, which are to plan a prioritization deliverable with steps towards implementation, to lay the foundation for the next iteration of landscape use students to engage in impactful landowner outreach, and to start crafting targeted messages for riparian buffer adoptions at a spatially refined audience. This was one of the maps that the students developed that we still use for preparation for site visits. This map and other maps from the GIS layers they developed highlight the best opportunities and mid-level opportunities at the parcel scale for a HUC 12 priority watershed in Center County. On a countywide scale, the students developed this map that helps us identify landowners where there may be more willingness to adopt buffers than other areas. The students used a study with so-called prime parcels layer developed by DCNR and were able to duplicate mapping results at a very high precision. It demonstrated that their algorithm could be utilized across Pennsylvania at a cost-effective scale in lieu of hiring a GIS professional to develop the data layer. This map helps us prioritize our outreach efforts and provides partners confidence that their efforts will result in success. The students also provided best practices for communications within the toolkit they developed. On to the next cohort of students that we worked with within our CAP planning and implementation is the College of Agriculture 2 student groups, which was the ERM 497 class and the Agriculture and Environment Center. When I was a student at Penn State, I worked as an intern at the Agriculture Environment Center, which is led by Matt Royer. I first learned about the AEC when I actually took Matt's ERM 497 class, which is a specialty topic course titled The Chesapeake Bay Watershed, Chesapeake Bay Issues and Careers in Complex Environmental Problem Solving, which is about as complicated as a title as Chesapeake Bay work itself. Just about everything that I do in my work today, from engaging with landowners, implementing best management practice projects, GIS analysis, and more, I learned when I was a student and as an intern with the AEC. Since there was an existing relationship with the professor and with the organization, we wanted to provide students with an opportunity to support the development of the CAP by conducting watershed assessments to provide data for any stakeholder working within watersheds in Center County. We asked the students to conduct an aerial imagery analysis where they located potential project sites within the priority watersheds that HRG identified within the CAP planning process. They then conducted a windshield survey and ground truth the aerial imagery analysis that they conducted and the location of the implemented sites. They created GIS layers and provided recommendations for improvements for all of the projects that they identified. So they recognized that Spring Creek watershed is the largest HUC 12 watershed in Center County, and through their aerial imagery analysis, they were able to identify 63 potential projects. And those identified project sites span from riparian buffers, bioswale retrofits, stormwater basin retrofits, other bioinfiltration prospects, and they mapped all of them out using Google Earth and then converted it into GIS layers that we are then able to reference when working with stakeholders in the Spring Creek watershed. There was a natural conveyance of working with the students from the ERM 497 course I think it was just 2, but 2 or 3 continued as interns with the Agricultural Environment Center, and they loved the watershed aerial analysis and watershed windshield survey. So they decided to continue working on this project for us, and they conducted a windshield survey in Cedar Run. And they had previously identified that Cedar Run had areas of concern via via aerial assessment in the ERM 497 course. And so they were able to then create the same project with the final project site points, and which were then checked through windshield surveys in Cedar Run. And this is a picture of their ground truthing. So it really helps the students, learn how to use GIS, learn how to identify potential project sites, and then get out and about in the county and help us with ground truthing of projects.
The last group was with Millersville University and a small team of 3 undergraduate students. Whenever we developed the CAP, we estimated that it would cost $7 to $10 million per year to fully fund our CAPs. And you'll recall that the phase 3 WIP for Pennsylvania and the other Bay states are due for completion by 2025. So we're talking about a lot of dollars on a per county basis across the entire watershed. We also know that public sources of funding are limited and competitive. Similarly, the problems that we're trying to solve are large in scope and highly technical. So communicating the problem to potential private investors is a challenge. We asked Millersville University students to research entities in Center County who may have an interest in funding water quality projects due to their business, their mission, their employee population, and other things that they found. The students then developed a flyer that helps us communicate our goals, so it might be easier for a layperson to digest the challenges. The deliverable was a 1-page infographic, and the idea was that it would catch a layperson's attention and could also be transformed into other types of content like website content or social media content. The project was coordinated through the Governor's Office of Performance through Excellence. And we worked with the DEP Chesapeake Bay office along with Dr. Richard Clark from Millersville University Earth Sciences Department. So again, they reframed our CAP toolbox results and initiatives so that the plan could be communicated to a general audience, and also helped us create a non-public financing strategy, primarily through the development of a database of local businesses that may have interest in our support. Here's a copy of the infographic they developed for us. As I said, they generate an inventory of companies who operate in the county. They reviewed the county websites to see if they had sustainability goals, environmental goals, water saving or energy saving goals. And then the students provided us the inventory, a summary of those goals, and contact information for next steps. They put together this flyer that we can use when we're ready to discuss partnerships with local businesses. And it specifically focuses on basic stormwater runoff education in the lower right-hand corner, local water quality goals in some of the text, and then the need for our fundraising. So note that we're not talking about the Chesapeake Bay in this flyer. We are talking about local opportunity and local impacts.
So this picture that we have really highlights the importance of the partnerships and actual work, even outside of the countywide action plan, just any work related to engaging with landowners, engaging with local water quality, solving local water quality issues. And so this is the stream buffer demonstration area that we have at iProgress Days. And we have a permanent sign that lists all the partners that work on the project. And it's Center County Conservation District, DCNR, Penn State University, NRCS, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as other partners that assist us but aren't on the permanent sign. And I'd just like to show this picture because this work can't happen without partnerships, and involving students in this partnerships, especially when there's such a great resource to engage with students in Center County. They are a valuable asset to this work, and as are all of our stakeholder partners if we want to reach our goals by 2025.
All in all, Allyson and I were very pleased that we took the strategic risk and time investment with university class projects in 2021. These projects will serve as the foundation for future work in the county. The students demonstrated that they're capable of providing us data sets and advice that are practical and technically sound. They received the benefit of the experience. It took their work beyond the classroom, and we saved money on developing these data sets rather than doing it ourselves. while accelerating implementation in the field. Rather than waiting a year or years for the funding to come through to do this work, they were ready and willing to take on the challenge. We look forward to continuing these relationships, and who knows, maybe some of these students will be inspired to join Countywide Action Plan implementation teams whenever they have the chance to graduate. So in terms of our 3 takeaways, be open to partnerships with universities, be flexible and let the students take ownership of their projects, and commit to using the deliverables because you will receive a high quality outcome whenever you're committed to using whatever they produce. Thanks for your interest in our story, and please contact us anytime. Our emails are here on the screen again. Take care.